Bit of a problem with sort of the framing of, well, he was diagnosed with autism or had some sort of mental illness. We don't know, the extent of his mental illness, and autism does not necessarily mean that someone is going to be violent.
Revealed that the young man, when he was 7 years old, was diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, which is on the autism spectrum, but one expert telling CNN that there is no connection between autism and violence. Chris and Kate.
The shooter had been diagnosed apparently with autism and was taking some medications, but I'm very wary, of course, of that narrative for a bunch of reasons. One is that there is no link whatsoever between autism and shooting, and across the board, people with mental illness are far more likely to be the victims of violence rather than the perpetrators of violence.
But in fact, let me just pause right there. I'll let you go on, but I do want to point out, when I looked up from my desk and saw autism spectrum as part of the narrative, we immediately reached out to Autism Speaks, who sent us a statement, who did, in fact, just to underline what you said, write to us. It is inaccurate to report that there is any correlation between Asperger's syndrome and any autism spectrum disorder and planned violence. Even the implication is discriminatory against those with autism, since the fact is that people living with autism are far more likely to be victims of violence. These reports are harmful in that they take away the focus from the real needs of the 3 million people in this country with autism. So I did want to just...
Let me emphasize, as you did about autism, people with autism spectrum disorder are no more violent than the general population. People with schizophrenia and related disorders are no more violent, except, and this is the difficult caveat for someone like myself who cares for patients with schizophrenia, except for when they're not in treatment.
About mental illness. Clearly, we have a public health problem in this country, and it's death by gun violence.
I just want to clarify, I don't think people with autism would consider themselves as having a mental health problem, and I do think in this instance, actually yesterday we did have an opportunity to talk with a mental health expert. There were many behaviors that are very typical of someone with very significant mental health issues. One of the things, though,